Let's begin today's Vanguard news, or lack thereof, since all of these will consist of collabs. For starters, the Japanese version of DZBT10 will have up to 50 characters from Bang Dream as a heel trigger EX cards that will also have signed versions. As much as I liked having collected the previous Bang Dream critical triggers, Vanguard as a series is devolving into a metaphoric walking commercial for Bang Dream. From having the anime's opening and ending being performed by them, to having actual deck types that have their own nation. You can't go at least 3 months without hearing about Bang Dream within Vanguard. But expect everyone to ignore this fact as they collect their favorite waifu to goon their dreams. Speaking of collabs that Bushiroad owns the rights to, that has their own nations in the game, and forces you to build a deck from scratch, here's the first reveals for the upcoming Buddyfight collab in DZTB01. Dragon World while on Vanguard lets you say open the flag when you stand it up to become a buddy fighter, then put a buddy monster from your id deck into your order zone. You can only put one flag card in your deck, and while on Vanguard or in the order zone, this card is unaffected by all other effects and you can ride, call or play a buddy fight card if it from Dragon World or a generic. I can already see the rule sharks preparing to call a judge when the buddy fight player refuses to LARP this nation's catchphrase. Gauge zone while in your id deck lets you put a flag card in your soul into your order zone when you ride. To put this card into the crest zone, then put the top 2 cards of your deck face down as gauges. This card lets you have gauge. When this card is put into the crest zone, or at the beginning of your id phase, you can put a card in your hand face down as a gauge to draw a card. And once per fight, you can call a buddy monster from your order zone and countercharge 1 damage if your Vanguard is grade 3 or higher. This card tries to mimic the original rules of Buddy Fight as much as possible, except that Vanguard technically already has a gauge zone, which makes this card all too confusing to someone who has never heard of Buddy Fight. Also, you cannot use an energy generator if you have this card in your deck. This is how your crest and order zone would look like when playing this nation, which is kind of awkward since the flag is usually with the player behind the central column. This just looks forced and messy. Ibo Academy Mikado Gal, when placed by riding over Dragon World, lets you either add up to 1 armored dragon or item card from the top 7 cards of your deck, or arm this card with up to 1 Sunfist Sunshine Impact from your deck. Here we have another collab deck that basically goes +1 in the early game without so much as a cost. And yes, in order to mimic Buddy Fight's equipped card system, your Vanguard can be armed like Bavsagra. Mikado style Aiki Jujutsu Mikado Gal when placed on Vanguard lets you add up to 1 drum or item card from the top 7 cards of your deck. Is it just me, or is every ride line these days just an adaptation of Eva's ride line, where riding basically gives you a card for free? Mighty Sun Fighter Mikado Gal once per turn while on Vanguard lets you rest one of your rear guards when he attacks. To make him and the unit rested for this cost, become in link attack state for that battle. Once per turn while on Vanguard, you can pay 1 counter blast at the end of the battle he attacked to stand one of your rear guards in link attack state. Then stand one of your drum rear guards if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher. And once per turn while on Vanguard, you can pay 1 soul blast to call up to 1 drum bunker dragon from either your deck or drop zone, and reduce the cost of its original act ability by 1 gauge. Instead of the usual 5 attack decks, Gal can only do 4 attacks instead, with one of them being a front row booster, but also lets you use drum's attack abilities. Buddy Fight Nation decks can only contain your flag, grade 1 to 3 units, your gauge crest, and the last card is a copy of your buddy monster. Looks like Bushiroad at least got something out of Griffo Gilla's old mechanic. Sunfist Sunshine Impact is a normal order item card that can only be played by paying 1 gauge to arm it to your Vanguard. It goes into your drop zone when a new item is armed to your Vanguard. While on Vanguard during your turn, it gives your Vanguard 5k power. Then it gives all your front row drum rear guards 5k power if you have a grade 3 or higher GA Vanguard. And once per turn while on Vanguard, you can discard another copy of this card from your hand when your Vanguard attacks a grade 3 or higher unit and your buddy monster rear guard is in link attack state to set your Vanguard's power to infinity, and it gets an extra crit. Just when you thought over triggers should be banged in every competitive event, here's a card that can literally surpass it. Pray to Messiah that there's no way this deck can recycle its item cards. Drum Bunker Dragon can only be called by paying 1 gauge and putting the top card of your deck into this card's Buddy Soul. While on rear guard, you can pay 1 gauge to call a drum card with a different name without paying the call cost over this unit from either your deck or drop zone. Your drum units that has this card as a Buddy Soul gets 5k power and shields if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher. And if this card would leave your rear guard, you put one of this unit's Buddy Soul into the drop zone to make this unit stay on rear guard. Take note that the second ability makes this card and its Buddy Soul become the called drum's Buddy Soul. Funny how this card did the overdress mechanic better, and this was technically created years before the overdress mechanic even existed. Thunder Knight's Drum Bunker Dragon can only be called by paying 1 gauge and putting the top card of your deck or card in your drop zone into this card's Buddy Soul. When this unit moves from rear guard to the Guardian Circle, he gets 5k shields. Then he gets another 5k shields for each of his Buddy Soul. Once per turn while on rear guard, he gets 5k power when he either attacks a grade 3 or higher unit or becomes in link attack state. And if this card would leave your rear guard, you put one of this unit's Buddy Soul into the drop zone to make this unit stay on rear guard. Who would spend so much gauge and resource just so you'd have a 25k intercept? Crimson Battler Drum Bunker Dragon can only be called by paying 1 gauge and putting the top card of your deck or card in your drop zone into this card's Buddy Soul. Once per turn while on rear guard, he gets an extra crit when he either attacks or becomes in link attack state and you have a grade 3 or higher GA Vanguard. And if this card would leave your rear guard, you put one of this unit's Buddy Soul into the drop zone to make this unit stay on rear guard. This would have been a great card if it got 10k power like a certain obscure deed. Blue Sky Knight's Drum Bunker Dragon can only be called by paying 1 gauge and putting the top card of your deck or card in your drop zone into this card's Buddy Soul. When placed on rear guard, you can pay 1 counter blast or 0 counter blast if your Vanguard is Mighty Sunfighter Mikado Gal to draw a card. Once per turn while on rear guard, either soul charge 1 card or put the top card of your deck face down as a gauge when he attacks a grade 3 or higher Vanguard. And if this card would leave your rear guard, you put one of this unit's Buddy Soul into the drop zone to make this unit stay on rear guard. This card is more of a resource manager, and yet it's weird that it lets you soul charge a card when the deck so far doesn't really use soul. Ultimate Near Dragon Drum the Future can only be called by paying 1 gauge and putting the top card of your deck or card in your drop zone into this card's Buddy Soul. While on rear guard during your turn, he gets 10k power if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher. And once per turn while on rear guard, this unit gets a once per turn auto ability where he becomes in link attack state and you either have 4 or more damage or persona road that turn. That prevents your opponent using auto abilities when this unit attacks. Then you can pay 1 counter blast to perform a drive check, but he loses 1 drive. This card basically turns your Vanguard's link attack into a triple drive that prevents sentinels or blitz orders. Combining this with Sunshine Impact creates a no fight no guard scenario. On a side note, why does Borgia Road keep making grade 3 rear guard units that can perform drive checks but loses 1 drive? Just make them grade 2 units if this was the case. 5th Omni Dragon Lord Drum can only be called by paying 1 gauge and putting the top card of your deck or card in your drop zone into this card's Buddy Soul. Once per turn while on rear guard, you can pay 1 gauge when he attacks a grade 3 or higher Vanguard to retire one of your opponent's front row rear guards. Then this unit gets 10k power once per turn. While on the front row rear guard, your opponent discards a card in hand when a card is revealed for your damage check while you have a grade 3 or higher GA Vanguard and you don't have another rear guard with the same name as this unit. And if this card would leave your rear guard, you put one of this unit's Buddy Soul into the drop zone to make this unit stay on rear guard. After Drum the Future, anything else pales in comparison. Even with 2 types of control skill, this feels more like a gimmick. Drum Bunker Dragon SD, while in the drop zone, lets you pay 1 soul blast when your drum rear guard with a different name is placed to either put this card into that unit's Buddy Soul or to call himself in the same column as the placed unit. It's like every deck nowadays gets a card that revives itself, and this card has the added bonus of becoming Buddy Soul and being the first one to be thrown away, only to be reused next turn. Drago Wisdom Knowledge of the 5th Omni is a normal order spell card that can be played from the drop zone, and can only be played if you either have a Gao Vanguard or a 5th Omni rear guard. To bind this card, then put the top card of your deck face down as a gauge and draw a card. This card feels like Caliburn, where you either draw or give yourself some resource, which this card does both. Thunder Knight's Halberd Dragon is your typical D-Series Sentinel that, along with Thunder Knight Drum, kind of ruins the epic name of Thunder Knights, as they are just a bunch of meat shields. Blue Dragon Shield is a blitz order spell card that works like a regular Sentinel, but lets you countercharge 1 damage and remove this card if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone. Did Bushiroad forget the reason why they even capped Elementaria Sanctity to 1 per deck in the first place? But I guess this is fine, as it also restricts the amount of countercharge you can perform. Drago Energy is a critical trigger order spell card that, when played, gives one of your armor dragons 3k power. And during the guard step, this card can be called as a trigger unit and gets 15k shields. This is a one unique mechanic that I wanted to see in regular nation decks, since I saw it in the Shaman King collab trigger order cards. Unfortunately, this is a slightly worse version of the effect crits we have, as it doesn't become soul. But on the bright side, you get the effect immediately and don't have to sacrifice your booster. Dragon Trust is a critical trigger order spell card that can only be played by paying 1 gauge to put this card into your grade 2 or lower rear guard's buddy soul. And during the guard step, this card can be called as a trigger unit and gets 15k shields. They're really trying to water down this mechanic by giving it a cost, just so you can go -1. Dragon Barrier is a front trigger order spell card that, when played, puts itself face down as a gauge. And during the guard step, this card can be called as a trigger unit and gets 15k shields. This card is the equivalent of getting 1 energy, not worth the cost, and especially since this is only a 15k shield. Green Dragon Shield is a heal trigger order card that has no order abilities. During the guard step, this card can be called as a trigger unit and gets 15k shields. And when it's put on the Guardian Circle, you can pay 1 discard if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone to countercharge 1 damage. This might actually see some use, but the deck already has Blue Dragon Shield to countercharge. Dragonic Grimoire is a draw trigger order card that, when played, lets you pay 1 counterblast and discarding all your cards in hand if you have 4 or more damage to draw 2 cards. And during the guard step, this card can be called as a trigger unit and gets 5k shields. The most unique one in the bunch, since you don't need to discard anything if this was the only card in your hand. But if you prefer using the old classic effect triggers, then these generic effect triggers are for you. Future card Buddyfight is an over trigger, whose additional effect makes you add a normal order from your drop zone, then your Vanguard and Buddy monster gets an extra crit. Basically Idus Pharaoh, but with extra but more rewarding steps. If there's one good thing about Buddyfight being its own nation, it's that it can't use Drag Veda and making another deck tier 0. Finally, Gargantua Punisher is normal order impact card that cannot be played and can only use its effects if you did not resolve your impact order this fight yet. While in your hand at the end of your turn, you can pay 1 counterblast discarding this card, paying 4 gauges and saying final phase if your opponent has 4 or more damage and you persona road this turn to stand your Vanguard and it attacks your opponent's Vanguard. I just finished praising how Buddyfight decks can't use Drag Veda, and yet here's a card that basically does the same thing on top of the deck already having a way to get to an extra crit, has infinite power, and prevents your opponent from using Sentinels. And that concludes this Vanguard news without the bullshit. Special thanks to my Patreon members for continuing to support my content creation. Be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments if you're also wondering where the Vanguard in this game is anymore.